Hello, Councillor Auld, can you hear us?
Barely.
Barely. Okay, I'll crank it.
If you're talking to me, Mayor Burke, I can't hear at all. There's no volume.
No.
Councillor Auld, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rob, just fine.
Yeah, we've got you.
Yeah, I can hear you guys, but I cannot hear the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Councillor Auld from home, can you hear us now?
Now I can, yep.
Thank you for your graciousness.
No, thank you, Laura. I know this is
Very soon. Our second delegation is joined. Do you mind if I do an audio check?
sure.
Hello, Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Laura. I'm our communications coordinator. I just wanted to do a quick audio check. Mayor Burke has just called the meeting to order. I believe you're second on the agenda for delegation, so I'm going to mute you until Mayor calls on you, all right?
Perfect. I will be here when you need me.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor, thank you.
All right, so we have an agenda in front of us. I'm going to ask Councillor Fraser and Councillor Auld, did you have anything to add?
I do not.
So just looking for a motion to accept the agenda as amended. Councillor Brown, all in favor of that motion? That's carried.
What was added?
14.3 to the closed session, intergovernmental.
Okay.
So we're going to move on to the delegations now. We have 3.1, delegation for the Isolation Center and Homeless Shelter. And David Carter is here to represent that group. Welcome, David. I will turn this over to you.
I will turn this over to you.
And is the PowerPoint going to be up there? Was there? Is that-
This is the first I've heard.
Oh, okay.
We have the we have a PowerPoint on our computer.
Okay, so you can see it on there?
Yeah, we do have a PowerPoint, so we're all good to go.
All right, I just might need one for me to look at. I'll just
Okay.
put it on my phone here.
I can pull it up here.
Oh, okay, if you have that, that would be great. Just so we're all on the same page. You are. Thank you. All right. Well, it is an honor to be here before you all and to represent the Community Homelessness Coalition. I'm always a little nervous when it comes to speaking and presenting in front of groups like this, but bear with me. And I just want to start by introducing our coalition to you. We have a number of community organizations that are involved, and as well as individuals from the community. We have organizations like Alberta Health Services, the Clearwater Regional Housing Authority, FASD, Mountain Rose Center, the Rocky Native Friendship Center, RCMP and Victim Services, Rocky Public Library, our organization, the Lord's Food Bank, and the Rock Youth Center, and individuals from the community, Cody Spierenberg. And Cody ran a Facebook page, Rocky Homelessness Awareness, that you may have seen, that had 246 likes on that page. So those are people following and interested in that topic in Rocky. Jackie James, Lonnie Caplet, Richard Nickel, and Del Reeder. And we've been meeting regularly since March of last year. So I want to talk about homelessness defined. And so the way that we see homelessness is that it's the situation of an individual, family, or community without stable, safe, permanent, appropriate housing, or the immediate prospect, means, and ability of acquiring it. You could also view it as a lack of autonomy when it comes to housing, a lack of freedom. And there's certainly a lot of that I've seen in my time living here in Rocky. A lot of people living on couches at the mercy of the people who actually own the home or are renting the home. And so when we talk about homelessness, we're not just talking about the stereotypical viewpoint of someone living in the alley in a cardboard box. There's a lot of hidden homelessness. So when we talk about it as kind of an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg would be those obvious, visibly homeless people that are totally unsheltered or in emergency shelters. Then you have the provisionally accommodated and at risk of homelessness, which makes up a big portion of the people that we are concerned about. And a provincial number is that 11.4% of Alberta households experience core housing needs, which would statistically equate to 326 households in Rocky Mountain House. So that's quite something to think about. And now not all those people may come into that situation of losing their housing at the same time. Even one of those to come up and then to have nothing in place, we just feel is unacceptable. I want to define core housing needs here for you. So core housing would mean that they either pay more than 30% of their gross household income on housing. They live in housing requiring major repairs, so that may be unsafe or unsuitable. And they may live in housing that is insufficient for the needs of the family, living in housing with insufficient bedrooms for the household size in question. And housing stability, really beyond viewing it from a basic needs perspective, it just has such an impact on the life in general that people are living. My family had the wonderful privilege of becoming Habitat homeowners. We've been in our home since October of 2018 now. And that has brought so much just peace of mind and stability to our home, and just a feeling of belonging, a feeling of ownership. And so I know living on the opposite side of that, where you're at the mercy of conditions, or whether you're not comfortable with the safety of your home, it just leads to the opposite. It brings all kinds of instability and compounds any other issues that people are experiencing, whether that be addiction or mental health or other personal issues. We can talk about the costs of homelessness to society. There's a few charts there, and I apologize for some of the small print there. But when you break this down and look at the difference, especially on the far right there, between $1,932 a month for an average cost of a shelter bed versus $10,900 for a hospital bed. We often talk as community members about just the ways that a lot of time is spent, a lot of hours are spent trying to figure out how to accommodate people that are homeless and are struggling. And it's a large cost, and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. You look down at $701 rent supplements versus $199.92 for social housing. There's all kinds of ways that homelessness costs us as a society, even financially, but more than that, I think, on a community and personal level. We could talk about some of the causes that trigger homelessness, and you can go down through there. And I know that even for myself, I think as I was growing up, and I grew up in a fairly compassionate home, I tended to buy into the stereotype that most people who were homeless were just addicts. And, you know, they just needed to go out and get a job. And we see some of these things here. Loss of job is a huge cause, 35% there. Change in family status. You have mental issues, you have sicknesses, disability, you have incarceration, or you have criminal records that get in the way of finding a stable situation. You have abuse at home. I know if you were talking to the Mountain Rose Center, I mean, that's their whole reason for being in a lot of ways, is that people find themselves in need of that emergency safe shelter or evicted by family members. And though some of those causes I'm sure will overlap, you can have comorbidities, I suppose. We really need to understand the complexity that causes someone to become homeless. I'm moving on here. And how close are you? It says nearly 1 in 10 Canadians experience hidden homelessness at some point in their lives. That's a scary percentage to me. You know, and maybe you could think back in some of your living situations that you've experienced in your life. And, you know, again, where maybe you didn't have the autonomy, you weren't in an ideal situation, and you had no other option but to stay put or be out on the street. It's a scary thing, but I think it's a reality that a lot of our citizens here in Rocky and in the county are dealing with daily. And I know from talking to many that that is a reality for them. When then you read this statistic, that more than half of Canadians are living within $200 per month of not being able to pay all their bills or meet their debt obligations. And this, again, this number is pre-COVID. And I'm just nervous and scared for the people that are deferring their payments right now and that are counting on these temporary benefits that are going to run out and wondering, what are we going to be facing in the fall? Let's talk about some of the local data here. Statistics, so that'll be the next slide. Statistics represented by ARDN gave a core housing need in our community of 11.3%. You can see it's just under the provincial average, but still very significant. A homelessness estimation count in 2017 reported 46 people as homeless, and 37.5% of these were chronically homeless, more than 6 months. For our organization, the Food Bank, we ran an overnight warming center just to keep people out of the brutal cold. So when the temperature fell below -15, we'd open the doors and it was just have a place to sit, have something to eat and a cup of coffee, and you could stay here all night. And people would crash in their chair or whatever, but it was not a shelter by any means. We had 8 unique individuals who were homeless before the crisis. Since the crisis began, I know of 4 more individuals who lost housing and have needed hotel rooms or overnight shelter. and one individual who's moved to sleeping in their car. We want to talk about the next slide, the impact of COVID-19 on the homeless. And again, the impact on the homeless has been severe. Most of the public places they had access to before have been closed down due to the shutdown measures. I'm sure many of them are relieved as some of those are starting to lift again. Now, I had one gentleman ask me, where am I supposed to pee? There's no public washrooms. I don't want to get a ticket. What am I supposed to do here? Then for those who may become symptomatic, there's nowhere they can go to self-isolate. They're at a high risk for receiving or transmitting the virus. And anecdotally, I've heard of some that have taken the CERB and are staying in motel rooms at the moment, just trying to, at least have something right now. Again, that's going to run out and likely they do not qualify and may have to repay it. And so although this issue has become more urgent with the COVID-19 pandemic, we feel that this has simply highlighted the gaps in our community, gaps which need to be addressed for the well-being of our community and its most vulnerable residents. And again, anecdotally, I had to self-isolate for 2 weeks. I had some symptoms. I had to go get tested and had to wait. I got to live in my basement. My wife cooked meals for me. It was a pain, but it was fine. I was fine. And so all I could think of when I was down there was some of these people have absolutely nowhere to go. So the immediate need, the next slide here. So due to the COVID-19 scenario, we have taken measures to create temporary housing for affected individuals. The Lord's Food Bank has submitted a grant application to use the Rock Youth Center as a MAP program location for those community members who do not have appropriate housing. Included in the application is funding to approach hotels for those individuals who need to self-isolate or quarantine. And so unconfirmed funding applied for at this point is actually $30,000 because I heard about 5,000 that was approved already, with another application in progress for $15,000. And pledged contributions already are valued now at $35,000 towards doing this project. So that's a temporary fix. What we're looking at with the Rock is depending on how long these restrictions last. And so if the restrictions were lifted, then we would lose that space at the end of August and have to be once again homeless, looking for a home for our program. So we're going to talk about the formal request. So this is coming again on behalf of this coalition, on behalf of the citizens of Rocky that are concerned and would like to help the homeless. And most of all, on behalf of those citizens of Rocky that are homeless or near to being homeless. We believe it's crucial to provide safe and secure housing to all individuals. We have both measurable and anecdotal data to support that this basic necessity is not currently available within our area. Temporary solutions are possible, but we would prefer to have something permanent and well suited for the program. So we would like to formally propose taking over the post house as a homeless shelter and would like to request the town's partnership in this matter. The post house would be ideal as to location. It's right close to the food bank, to the library, to the Native Friendship Center, to the previous usage, and to the amenities that are already in place, showers and laundry, etc., things that we can't offer through the Rock Youth Center. Therefore, we request the support of the town of Rocky Mountain House to partner with us as we seek to develop solutions for a homeless shelter, transitional housing, and affordable housing to rectify this deficiency. Homelessness will not go away with COVID. In fact, sadly, we believe that the problems will only be compounded and we will be seeing more people whose ability to provide for their basic human needs is in jeopardy. And that being said, though, we want to remain hopeful. While we're working on short-term solutions, we are also looking ahead to what could be accomplished if we come together. And I just want to close very quickly with this, okay? We held a community consultation back at the beginning of the year with over 50 people in attendance. The theme of that consultation was called Stone Soup. And you all know the story, I'm sure. What that story teaches us is that in a society or a community, you always have two things: people that are in need and people that can help. And what you need in order for that to happen is a touch point. So I asked the town to let the post house, to consider letting the post house be that touch point for the homeless in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I mean, does anybody have any questions for David?
Yes.
I think I read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if the town was not able to put it for some reason, we'll obviously have that discussion in the town too, but did I not read that there's still a way that this organization can maybe make this go forward without the mayor? Is that correct? And how that comes into play out with that?
So what I can say with that is that we are committed to the homeless in our community, and we want to move ahead no matter what. And so if we get a negative answer from the town today, we're not going to give up. We're going to continue. But it'll make everyone's lives a whole lot easier if we can say, this is the building, this is what we have to work towards. And like I said, the touch point, if we have that touch point in place, I think it'll make it easy to move forward, and the community will come behind us. Yes.
One more question. What if it wasn't the post house? Just, I don't know how this all would come to play.
Yeah.
But, is there any thoughts, if not post house, any other kind of ideas or in your heads right now?
So I haven't given much thought to that, except for to say that, yeah, if there was another space that was made available to us, we would work with that for sure. Yeah.
Councilor Fraser?
Just for clarification, I guess, what are you envisioning when you say take over? Are you looking to purchase it? Are you looking to lease it? Are you looking for it to be donated? Or just so I understand the vision on that side?
I mean, yeah, you could, that would be, I guess, up to your pleasure, what you were willing to do for us. I think there are ways of donating and even receiving tax receipts on buildings for purposes like this. If we were to run it through the food bank, then we could do that. And so a donation would be a possibility. If you want to hold on to the ownership of that building, then that's another story, and it would be in terms of a lease or rental agreement.
So, sorry, Councilor, I think I'm still there. So you're looking for us to donate the entire building?
Well, I understand that there is housing in the top floor
Yeah.
that's currently occupied. And so I think that would be where some of the creativity, some of the conversations would have to happen.
How much do you think per year it costs you to operate a shelter?
Well, with our current program that we have laid out, and I have the grant application here that we ran. Just pull that up here. Let's just get here. So for 6 months, we have $57,000 was the cost to run it for 6 months. Now, again, that was, that's with utilities included and insurance and all of those things. Now, we might have to look at the cost of how it would go. So, yeah, so you double that to get an annual, which would be $115,000. Yeah.
And where will that funding come from?
That will come as we continue to apply for grants and raise support in the community.
Councilor Wright, thank you.
I think you answered the question. My question was about long-term funding.
Yeah.
So we've also been looking at other possibilities of making life easier to FCSS, possibly relocating down to that building as well.
Okay.
Perhaps Dean, could you give us an update on that?
Yeah, Your Worship. So that's been a discussion for a while. I think it was presented to the FCS board last week.
Okay.
Relocating FCSS down there, just mainly for public accessibility and ability of FCSS. My understanding is the board look capable on that.
Yeah, they just, because there happens to be a social study that's coming out that just took place. One was a senior study that just was released. There's another social study that wasn't quite released yet. The board wanted to see that study before making their final decision. So I think things will come forward next FCSS meeting where they get a decision on that. But it's certainly something we can consider as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the discussion, to relocate FCSS there to be more of a figure in that area.
Absolutely. It is the hub, right? That neighborhood. Yeah.
So I have no other questions then. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your, Councillor Auld. Just wait, Councillor Auld. Okay, go ahead.
Is this facility looking to be staffed by volunteers or paid employees?
So when we did the warming center, we did it on a 50-50 basis of paid staff and volunteers. And part of that is because there are people looking to volunteer and it saves costs hugely. So yeah, my ideal would be that it's done on that same level where there's always a paid staff person, basically who is ultimately responsible for the operations, but they are supported by volunteers. Again, they both give people the opportunity to serve in that way and save on costs.
Exactly. All right. Thank you for your presentation, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 3.2. We have a presentation with Kelly McTaggart with CAP.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Kelly.
Nice to see you again. It's been about a year since I was last there in Rocky Mountain, and hopefully the next time I'm there, we can do this in person. But if you're ready for me to get started, I'll just go right ahead.
Yes, please do. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Perfect. And please let me know if there's any issues with sound. So I just wanted to provide a quick update. You're actually the first council delegation that I've done since COVID-19 kind of came into fruition in March for us in Alberta. And we are starting to do virtual council meetings. So bear with me as you are the first, but in some ways that's great because there's lots of information to share. So very quickly, most of you are aware, but CAP is the industry association in Canada for the oil and gas sector, and we represent about 80% of the producers in Canada, or our producers, I should say, represent about 80% or more of the oil and gas produced in Canada from coast to coast. So we do have operating offices from coast to coast. Our operators are, as I said, coast to coast as well. So that's us. And we also have a large range of associate members as well who provide various services to the oil and gas sector. So just to get started, typically we give more of a project update and economics that are, relevant to Western Canada, but CAP is really focusing on federal priorities right now. So I wanted to touch on those and the priorities that we're focusing on in terms of the provincial side here in Alberta, as well as BC, which is very much has impact to the sector in Alberta, are all focusing on three similar priorities. So these priorities are, in order of my slides, are essential services, liquidity, and job preservation, as well as red tape reduction and deferral of regulatory change. So in terms, actually, I'm just going to go back and kind of set the tone of the economic situation that we're in right now. So To put the situation into perspective, we're still seeing about 3 billion people worldwide sheltering in place. And so when we look at the gas prices at the gas stations, we saw them dip to about 59 cents, depending on where we are, but that was kind of the average across Alberta about a month ago. We have faced some serious storage issues globally, and that's one of the reasons why we saw such a large dip in the price. After an OPEC plus meeting, we call it, which actually included OPEC as well as, actually the energy minister here in Alberta was invited to the meeting in April. We were really expecting to see a change in markets and, quite an increase in our prices. And we weren't seeing that. The markets were not reflecting that OPEC meeting that took place. That being said, we have seen a jump in gas prices, which is what most people pay attention to, and there's a story to be told on that. And one of the reasons is the global storage has been opened up a bit. So we have seen an influx of storage, which has raised the price. And just in the past couple of weeks, we've seen people start to travel again, especially in Canada in terms of car travel. So that's one of the reasons why the gas price has held at the stations. So one positive that's come out of this is that we actually are seeing markets respond a bit. Pre-crisis, CAP was predicting a capital expenditure to be about 39 billion in 2020, and we've cut this down to about 34, give or take. I'm sure we'll see between 30 and 35 billion in 2020. So quite a reduction in foreign capital investment and at-home capital in the sector. So in addition to capital cuts, a number of companies have also announced production cuts, which will have an additional impact on the economy. The three main industries that we're seeing affected in Canada, which is predominantly where I shouldn't say bailouts, but federal support is coming from, is tourism, the airline sector, and oil and gas. And all of those are quite closely linked given the travel effect for all of these industries. So that being said, there are the three kind of pillars that we've been focusing on at CAP, liquidity being the first. So the federal government has made substantive moves to open up liquidity across the economy. We've been seeing this in numerous announcements since April, the beginning of April, actually. So they have moved quite quickly in some areas. And the biggest announcement that came a couple of weeks ago is that the federal government is providing $1.7 billion for orphan wells and the Orphan Well Association. In addition to this, the Alberta government has also provided some additional funding for that. So with this funding, we're seeing about 10,000 jobs that will come out of this. A few points of note on this: this doesn't really affect our producers in any substantive way. This is really to protect workers in the industry. So to keep them working, to have our workforce maintained and not leave to move to other areas of the economy. So, and at the same time, we are doing some remediation for the industry as well. So all in all, positive. Although when this announcement came out, we were expecting more in terms of liquidity for our producers and our member companies. So in terms of that, the big announcement, which is, I guess, why this council meeting is timely, is that we did see another announcement last week in terms of liquidity. So it was last Monday or Tuesday, we saw the announcement of LEAF, which is the Large Employer Relief Program. And this is designed for large companies, again, in those three major areas. So tourism, the airline industry, and oil and gas, although not limited to these industries. This is where we think we're going to be seeing companies taking advantage of this relief fund. But I should mention, this is for the majors. So there needs to be about a $300 million threshold for these companies to be able to access this, and about 30 of our member companies qualify for the LEAF program. That being said, we actually haven't seen any of our producers take advantage of this yet, which is a good sign. It means that, financially, they're looking at other options before they take advantage of this federal program. So that's good. We think that a lot of this is actually going to be used by the airline industry. And in terms of the views of our member companies, we're still kind of trying to see where they stand with this additional funding. But one thing that I will say is that Canadian companies are in a much better position than American companies, because we were already very cost conscious coming out of 2014, 2015, more so than companies that have been exploring areas of Texas, the Permian Basin, and Oklahoma. So that being said, we're already in a cost conscious environment, which is turning out to work in our favor. So the second pillar priority is do no harm. So we're looking at, withholding some of these government regulations that might impose costs on our producers. In Alberta and BC, this, comes in the form of the carbon tax and other environmental initiatives that we're just not seeing the influx of emissions anyway. So it's just, a means of red tape reduction. I'm just going to go back here. In Alberta specifically, I should say that so in addition to carbon tax deferrals, there's also hydro fee deferrals and tax deferrals that are still being worked out. And we are having ongoing conversations with the orphan well inventory and how that additional provincial funding is going to be managed and where that's going to be allocated. And then in terms of red tape reduction, this is really goes hand in hand with the liquidity piece, in the sense that there are many companies that have projects ready to go and have basically been green lighted in terms of the regulatory piece. And now they just need an influx of cash to actually create this stimulus. So as things kind of settle down over the next couple of months, this is, I'm sure, an area that CAP will be looking at very closely to get some of those projects out the door. And then the next one is the protection of essential services and workers. So CAP's been working closely with camps, especially in the Fort McMurray area. And I should say, in the light of the floods in Fort McMurray as well, this is something that we've also been coordinating in terms of providing space to residents of Fort McMurray in camps. So that is one area that CAP has been helping out. But really, we need to be protecting our workers. That's of utmost priority, because we also need to, to keep our product flowing and the production to keep essential services in Canada running. So ambulances, medical supplies, we need the transportation, and this requires us having healthy essential workers in our industry. So that being said, there is some good news. So I mentioned that markets are responding, and prices were actually up. We saw them in the 30s on the Western Texas Intermediate this week, which is a good sign. Governments are responding. There's been quite a bit of support on all provincial levels. The federal government, Alberta and BC have both been highly responsive, especially in terms of our industry. And as I said, Canadian companies are much more nimble than some of our counterparts south of the border. In terms of major projects, all of our major projects are currently proceeding. So I did want to mention that LNG Canada and Coastal GasLink are moving ahead with construction. They haven't had any major issues in the past month in terms of timelines. Trans Mountain, they're in the same boat. Enbridge Line 3 is tying things up. And then Keystone XL, which I just wanted to mention quickly, there are some, consistent messaging coming out in the past couple of weeks about environmental concerns. And the presidential candidate, Joe Biden, just said that he would renege the presidential permit if he is to be elected. So it's really speculation at this point. They are trying to move forward with Keystone and the construction components that they can move forward with. But that's kind of the shaky project, if there was to be one that was named as kind of shaky. But it is an important project. About a fifth of Canada's oil would be moved through that pipeline to the United States. So I think I'm going to leave it there. pretty quick overview, but if there's questions for me, please let me know.
Kelly, I have a question. Is the current carbon tax still at 30%?
Do you know what? I would actually have to check because there was some debate on that. I think they were lowering it actually, or they were deferring it for a full year. So in terms of percentage, I would have to get back to you on that. But the last we heard is that it would be deferred entirely for at least a full year. So as I said, let me follow up because I'm not sure what the latest on that was.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay. How long will the Orphan Well program keep companies busy? Like, what's a realistic time frame on that?
All I got from that was Orphan Well. If somebody closer to the mic could ask the question.
How long will the Orphan Well program last? Is it a job that'll last, a program that will last a couple of years?
So there's actually no timeline on it. I think it depends how the fees are allocated. Given the amount of work that needs to be done, we're currently forecasting 5 to 10 years. So this is a long-term cleanup program, and there is quite a bit of front-end administrative work that needs to happen in terms of how that funding is being delegated across the province. And as far as I know, municipalities as well as private landowners will have a say in the application and letting the province know where and how that does need to be allocated. So in terms of timelines, there isn't really an expiration date on that. I think it's really when the money runs out and when the work's done.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks, Kelly, for your presentation. We appreciate us in the loop, and we look forward to the trending upwards.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, stay safe, everyone. It was nice to see you, although, through the screen, but we'll be in touch, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll move on now to delegation 3.3, Mr. Kirby Bigchild. Welcome, Kirby.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for having me, your worship, council, and good to see each and every one of you. Feels like it's been a long time. Didn't realize I had feelings for you all until I see you. No, again, thanks for having me. Very interesting times for us all in our community and what's going on in our world. I wanted to come and share news of a successful application from FCSS Association of Alberta. I applied for the social services support for COVID-19 and was successful and applied. I got a good number from it. I applied for $125,000 and got it all. So up until last week, we've been working with year-end stuff. We had lots of work to do, and it's all completed now. Friday, we started brainstorming and thinking about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. I already knew in my application what we were going to do, but I needed to hear from the staff. I sometimes make it sound like it was their idea first, so then they get credit. Right? So I was really vague in my application, and it was really to support by any means necessary for vulnerable Albertans, and it's socially, mentally, food-wise. So far, our ideas are food hampers to complement what our local food bank is already doing. Food hampers, craft kits of all ages for families. These crafting kits would be for individual kids. So say we have a craft kit go along with the food hamper. We'd have a pre-made form and we'd know how many kids are in the family, how many adults in their family, and we'd build that craft kit to the family's needs. Just being creative individually, and then also a creative kit to bring the family together, and with a teaching tool, and incorporating some culture, not just Indigenous culture, Filipino culture, Hawaiian culture, and any other culture. I really like that inclusivity that we've been focusing on in the last year or two. I still want to keep that in the works. Finding what other ethnic groups and what can we collect and create those different ethnic creations. And then also baby kits. So anybody who's got a family and an infant or a toddler, we can create those special needs specific to the family unit. And so these kits would be specific to the family needs, and included in there. So I've talked with the Pregnancy Care Network, Ms. Campbell. We're meeting tomorrow. We're going to look at how we can incorporate some baby kits and stuff, and all the resource materials. So if anybody gets these kits, they're also going to get all the resources they need to reach out if they need some mental support, psychological support, whatever supports their needs. We're going to try and build those or complement the already resources our great community is already offering. Also from that, we're looking at creating some lunch bags. So at the end of each day, our street homeless people can come and pick up a lunch bag with a juice box, an apple, sandwich, and they'd be on their way. So those will be prepped during the day, and they'll be available for pickup at the end of the day. And we're also exploring the idea of a great idea that was recommended last week about either a hot meal similar to the Meals on Wheels. Again, we're not trying to compete. We're just trying to complement what's already out there and target people that aren't accessing these resources that are already available. So then it'd either be a hot meal or a pre-made frozen meal that was pre-made and can have it delivered to vulnerable sectors or vulnerable Albertans. So I'm here. I'm not here for financial support. I'm here to share this news and offer the opportunity to you to see how we can work together and what you can maybe add to these kits, or even being on the creative side. What would you like to see in these food hampers or crafting hampers? Yeah, anything. I'd love to. My idea is creating an online PDF fillable form. Our community members can fill it online, maybe Facebook, fill it, submit it, and then we'd collect it, and we'd get their information of how many family members they have. And then we can, and what do they need? Maybe they don't need canned goods, maybe they need something else. So it'll be a detailed of how we could help. And so we'd go off the information that's on the forum and create these food hampers and these crafting kits. And say if it's a family of 7, we'd create 7 different crafts and then a crafting or even a board game. But we want to bring that family together and bring some laughter and creativity back into the house. Yeah, so I'm here to just give you the opportunity. I'd like to create these gifts and then have a nice little bow and wrapped around and have the partnering agencies that I've partnered with. The Town of Rocky Mountain House, Soquin, the county, Food Bank, Pregnancy Care Network. Just give you an idea, but I think it's a good time to show the community what's going on, how it's going on, and who's working together, or whatever. Or maybe we don't go with the logo. I think it'd be pretty cool to have you guys on board and see what we could do together.
Okay, thanks, Kirby. Congratulations on your grant application and success. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Congratulations on being approved on the grant. Is there a time frame on when this money has to be spent, or you have to receive it?
In my application I submitted, and this was a month and a half ago, maybe even longer. I have until December 31st. My idea was now, or a month ago to December, because I think that's going to be the most needed time. So I didn't go for a full year. I just, so December 31st I have.
Anybody else have any questions? Kirby, I was just wondering if you would have an alternate to an online form you filled out. Is there a space that you could go or have somebody come in and fill out a form with you rather than just it being electronically done?
Absolutely. I think the online, yeah, I really want to reach everybody. I want to reach as much people as I can. Online would be one option. So the ones that don't want to come in and be seen collecting the food after, whatever the case, they can do the online version. And then they could also make an appointment and come in, or I can email, or whatever the case, we'll get that form to anybody. We're talking about being back in the office, doors still closed, and going by appointment only, but that's in the area. And we're in the planning stages right now. This week, it's all planning on making those necessary contacts. And because I want to get into Condor, I want to get in Leslieville.
Great. Also, another question: do you think you would have certain items that perhaps these families might be able to choose from? So rather than maybe instead of a board game, maybe they would rather an extra meal. Say they have a lot of board games already, or maybe somebody needs shoes, or something like that. So create a couple of different categories that you may be able to choose from.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kirby. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm really curious about the food security aspect. Do you have thoughts on how that might be tackled?
No, but that's my meeting with this gentleman behind me. I don't know. No, it's not my area, and I don't have that experience whatsoever. So that's new to me, and very good question.
Your comments kind of pointed to a lot of food inclusion, and I think everybody knows that if you can deal with the food security aspect, you go a long way to dealing with mental and social concerns. I think it's probably a very important component. But thank you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I see every day how much the food bank is utilized, and again, it's not about duplicating. It's about complementing each other and reaching a bigger audience.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's not about duplicating.
Yeah.
We work together, and I think you guys already have a good handle on that. So thank you for that. Councilor Renee?
I just wanted to commend you also on your comments about really enjoying creating back in the home. I think that's an amazing thing to do for nonprofit and granting, because often that's a luxury that people in need are often afford. That's awesome.
So how do you see us supporting you then?
There might come a time where I need to build 100, 500 kits, bags, crafting materials, all that stuff, I might need staffing. I mean, sure, I can hire staff, but that's again, taken away from the, like, I want to get the most, I want to reach as much as I can for as long as I can, but getting the most value for our dollar. If I can get away from not hiring somebody and utilizing my staff and town staff and creating these kits, you know.
I'm sorry, just curious, depending on what it is, I think you guys volunteer help. As well, for hours, I think just have to volunteer, so, because when you're hiring people or town staff, there's no cost to volunteer. If it's a possibility that we certainly something to look at.
Well, absolutely. I know I can access my own volunteers, but again, I'd like to see some town involvement, town participation. Sure, I can get all the volunteers out there, but again, I don't see any, you know, I'm trying to be inviting and have you guys at the table, grassroots up. Just also, so you're aware, I am going to be providing some supports out on our 3 Indigenous nations and our Métis local nations. I was also successful in a grant through the federal government for just under 60,000, and that's going to go to similar stuff, but on reserve. So you're going to see some stuff there as well. And I just didn't want you to confuse 2 different things. Yeah. So my FCSS AA dollars are specific for our region, all inclusive. And then my, I wish I remember the grant right now, but it was a federal grant I applied for, specific for Indigenous. And I'm gonna earmark that for our 3 nations. And again, when I did get the money, but I haven't even looked at what I could do. I've made my contacts with the 3 reserves. And again, if you want, it's going to be pretty much the same type of thing. And if you want part of that, absolutely.
All right, well, thanks, Kirby. Call me and you create my.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Stuffing bags and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say I'm surprised. You must have brought your coffee mugs from your office. I was expecting you guys to be drinking plastic water bottles and styrofoam cups.
No. So I guess I can throw in these baskets will be environmentally friendly too.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely. We're going to be as creative and environmental friendly as possible throughout this whole process.
Good. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. So thank you. And yeah, give me a call anytime. This week we're going to be really focusing on planning and going from there.
And you call us.
Absolutely.
We have Mr. Gross' number.
Yep, you bet.
And
Okay.
mine.
Okay.
Get a hold of everybody.
For sure. Well, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day and week.
Good. Thanks. You too.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to number 4. Previous council meetings from May the 12th. Did anybody have any concerns with those minutes? If not, we'll leave those in effect. Councillor Alderson, all in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to number 5, 5.1, delegation business. So we'll start with the isolation center and homeless shelter. Discussion on that. Councillor Phillips.
We have to ask for this, because we have to ask for FCSS, how much space would it require? I don't know from the FCSS, their space or part of that space?
Your worship, I think, that's still something that needs to be worked out. Because one of the ideas by moving FCSS down there, also the possibility of other community groups sharing that space, make it more of a social hub. So I think that needs to be explored.
The whole thought being it's a great location for a social hub. And working together with all the partners in the community, I think, for me, there's still quite a few unanswered questions. I still think we need to wait and see what happens here. The FCSS building and the need studies, and you said Councilor Robertson, they're waiting for which.
Yeah, so I should clarify, because I was just thinking, I said that is part of the thing we're waiting on. We're also looking for feedback from town and to what the cost would actually be by being in that building. Nobody was convinced that was the best move necessarily. It doesn't make sense cost-wise. We want to see that on paper. We want to see numbers that support that against another building, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the costs are. But even if somebody moves there, we still are left with the problem in the community, Rocky Young to Clearwater of homelessness. And there's quite a bit of organization together here that obviously see needs for something like that. So I think if they had figured that all out together, which would be great, it would be coming to town. It's just how we know that. So there's definitely been asked here of some sort to try and help that out. I don't know if it's something that is council. If there's none of the user groups besides FCSS, I can look at FCSS be in that building and something like homelessness. Helping out with the homeless situation. I have no clue what information that is.
Any other discussion?
I would also like to homelessness. Several issues with jobs and other issues. I would like to see some discussion or do something together. Just because it's not just one. You may be a hub, but it's not just one.
Councilor Fraser?
I still like the idea of the FCSS being in that building along with a lot of the other groups. Is it possible, I guess, what about the rec building? I'm wondering if that would be a better place for an overnight kind of shelter, just because there's a lot more space. I'm not sure whether they would have some be part of the groups that were in with FCSS, so they could direct everybody to the appropriate social groups in the community. But if they were doing a separate sleepaway shelter or overnight shelter, I was wondering if that might be an option as well.
I guess I just don't know the cost yet, and I would like to see more of a business plan on cost. Is this going to be a cost added on to our annual budget? And I just don't know if it is, how much of a cost are we adding annually, or is this going to be like a separate society? I'm not sure. How do they say the mustard seed? That's a separate organization, is it not? Does anybody know?
Separate from what?
Like a standalone. It's not run by the city of Calgary. So it's its own organization. So I guess I would like to see that and find out what the actual ask is of the community, so that we know. Because we know if an organization is just reliant on grants, then we get used to those, and then suddenly that becomes something that's now having to be absorbed into the tax base. And so I'd like to see those costs. I'm unsure of all of that.
I'd be curious to know what the people think, because maybe there is a cost, but maybe they're okay with it. I have no clue.
Yeah, sure.
Because I agree, we have to make like some sort of financial decision. Yes, no, I don't know what it's going to cost, but if there was a cost, I'd like to know, would the people be okay with that community, knowing, like, do they believe there is a need, would be supportive of it, even if there's a cost, or funds, whether that's some sort of poll, whether that's some sort of whatever. I don't need numbers first, so we know what the exact ask is before, seeing some thoughts of, I don't make the final decision, but I would be curious to know what the idea of the community is regarding homeless shelter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's where I come back to. I would like to see what an actual cost would be, a realistic cost. How many people do we look at possibly helping? And, just all of, I don't even know how the State of Mustard shelter works. Like, are you just there for one night? When we're talking homeless shelter, is it one night, or is it actually finding short-term housing for people? I don't know what it is. So I'd like to have way more information with the costs associated.
Yeah, we leased that building to the shop, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And was it a market rate lease or was it subsidized? I don't remember.
You were supposed to have to verify that on this Schwager.
Most questions right to the rate.
Yeah. Was it market rate or?
Well, I do believe we charge roughly $3,000 per, sorry, I take that back. I think the last bill of 2019 was roughly $26,000.
So if somebody was to come in and use it as a shield, like who would say no, they're leasing it, there's a lease agreement.
That's right. If there's, okay, but that's what I want to know. Is this going to be a standalone organization, or is this actually going to be an organization, and the expectation is the town will be the organization that runs this? Those are the things that I really would like to find out.
But we find that up front, because to me, that's the main thing. Because the tap in events from town before they know it, they can get a lease, or if they're going to be doing it on their own. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, yeah, I can't answer anything until we know the cost.
And yet we still have homeless people that need something. So.
And I'm not denying that, Councilor Alderson, at all. I'm just saying, is there some sort of cost analysis done here and some sort of business plan? Just to say we support it, and then, we also have to be accountable for that as well. And I'm not at all saying that we may not need it. Just saying, I have to have details. Right?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what you're saying. You're like the organization, our organization comes to us saying what they need from us with that, this is how much they're going to cost us, what our long-term funding looks like that we don't want to be on the hook for a homeless shelter. That we're not in that business, because we're talking about getting out of the business for even affordable housing. I would like to see a model of an organization coming in and just leasing that space, and whether they become then tax exempt or whatever it is. To me, that's what makes the most sense. Have the professionals do that job. Those people are the experts in homelessness, and that's really not the town. And I don't think that that's what that costs. That's not what my thoughts were.
Yeah, I was saying, like Councilor Grant said, to me that makes the most sense as far as like without knowing much details at this point in time, that if there's some sort of lease agreement in place, I don't know where that money's coming from in order for them to make it happen, but or whoever, because I'm sure there's lots of involved that can allow it to happen. But from a town point of view, fine. I mean, it's a lease. The building is being used, it's being paid for, and it's possibly helping out the need.
That's great, but I'm unclear if that was the ask. So that's the information. We also find out about FCSS, so there's quite a few moving parts. Still, but have to have questions. I mean, before I can say yes or no, I still have questions that need to be answered. So
You kind of answered the question. I was just wondering, from a homeless shelter point of view, what's the most sense to social impact? Yes, when FCSS review what's the most sense, does that make what's the best use of that facility? Better use of the shelter? That's kind of my question. Both probably, but one is going to be better use.
Councilor Alderson?
So what is that, again, what is that most sense? Like, if the question was asked, direct building, possible use, that be used in some way, is that a possibility?
A direct building, I mean, it could potentially serve that use, and that's associated with direct building. separating that building, going to island for shelter.
Well, first off, there's clearly lots of information we need before we move forward, but with the rec building, I think the only snag with it for me is where it's located. But the land aspect of it actually is kind of intriguing. I talked about food security, and that land could be used to generate some food security. You know, it's got lots of space inside. It could be renovated to suit whatever the needs are, but I think it's the only problem with it is the location. But it's been shot for saying we need lots more information.
And we also have it listed right now, so we would have to decide. Right?
So is it just, you know, it's hard to decide what information we put in the spot, so it's just something we're together with what we need to know and then back to us? Not just seeking more information. What?
Yeah, the information that has been stated here by fellow councillors and Mr. Kraus is we need to explore possibility of sharing with the other groups. We need to more information as far as the cost of running the facility. We need the other groups to kind of define what it is they're looking for a little bit more clear. You know, they've given us a broad stroke. I think we need to dig into that a little bit more to find out where the boundaries are. And I think that would include some sort of concept.
And is there a possibility that the rock may be another possibility to?
Strictly temporary.
Is there another facility in town? You know, I don't know. Should we send like what very
Your worship, so what I think I'm hearing from council is want to bring back information on FCSS and costs. I know administration is working on that now. Council for consideration of lease rate, figuring out monthly utility, estimated monthly utility costs. Go back to the FCSS.
Yeah,
Or
there's been no cost.
yeah, so I think you're looking from a homeless coalition business plan. Ways to be operated. I don't know with a society formed for the operation of that. But just another consideration for council, all of this actually has to go through a kind of a land use bylaw review. Zoning might be needed for any, which means going through a public hearing. So just bring back that information.
And you know, I'd possibly like a few other suggestions as well for alternatives, and possibly, you know, we become a funding partner of that. So, you know, maybe we're just, I don't know how.
Yeah, I think this is a hard one. But I guess homelessness is going way in terms of, so I don't know, those are a lot of things to get back. That's something that I guess it's something that we're not too soon, so.
Your worship, so for the FCSS costs, and the first meeting in June, I'm sure we'll have that back to council, inform council, along with the land use bylaw review. We'll look at the two sites that were identified by council, the old rec building, post house. We'll bring that back to council.
Could I ask to see, like, is it a possibility? I don't know, just throwing this out there, that perhaps there's a partition made on the lower level of the post house to have a shelter in a portion of that. I can't remember how big it is, and if that's even a feasible option with FCSS in there, I don't know.
Mr.
I agree, comment on the layout of the building itself. On the front end, you got 10 offices, on the door. You have a fire door, which you have the shelter itself. There's a couple of units in the kitchen area and a wash house or a washroom, I guess. It depends how you put them in there, I guess, as far as your 2 or 3 per room. I needed to be done to house a homeless shelter. You can send a report back, of course, which required. We were just kind of looking at the whole building itself. As far as the back end, I don't think it was an issue. It was used as a shelter at one time, sleeping.
Right, and then they have their offices in the front.
Yeah, the front end. So is it possible? Probably, but at the same time, I'm not sure what the numbers of they require for homeless, whether it's half a dozen or a dozen. I think after a while, they get crowded in the back end as far as the space that's available, but it is doable, I guess. But it all depends, it all depends what FCSS is requiring for, whether there's boardroom required or other space available or what they require for their needs.
Sounds like some more information needs to be gathered, and I think, but somebody in the room also feel like seeing the information. So I guess we just need a motion to bring back more information regarding FCSS and to contact the Homeless Coalition to find out if they could provide some sort of business plan and cost breakdown. And what is the ask financially of the town?
Just for clarification then, are we actually looking at anything directly at this time?
I don't know what's you're doing. I have no clue that's possible. Because I think like when you're asking for a business plan, which is fair, you can only bring a business plan on is a half. That's building, then you come up with that more after cost, and just guessing at what you're gonna end up in, but how you end up business plan, not knowing whether you're actually projecting it, and which more than it.
Yeah, and I just asked for clarification. Do we
Yeah.
actually have it on the market right now?
For me, I don't think the record building is a feasible option. It's way out.
Far away.
Yeah, from the core area, core service area.
So, yeah, it contradicts why we're bringing FCS down to the post.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I agree.
I think we have no other choice, and that would be an option, but we have a choice.
And it would require a lot of renovations.
Yeah.
Who would do the renovations? So,
And the post house has that shelter portion already, so it's a logical spot, it's just a size.
okay. So am I hearing that we need the rec building out of the equation?
Yeah, unless there's a business plan that can support
Renovating it?
taking that out.
Yeah, sure. But then we'd have to take it off the market.
I don't think it makes sense at this point in time.
I
mean, they're welcome to contact what's wise, like, if you want to put that, can they still look at it, come up with a plan, if not sold by then it has to go from the foul.
So no, yeah, leave the rec building out of it now.
It didn't take long.
So is that all doable in one motion then? Yeah, did you have it written out there? Sure, please.
Be it resolved that council and smart administration to gather additional information regarding plans and costs for FCSS and to request additional information from the homeless commission regarding this plan.
You good with that? Yeah? Councilor Phillips?
No discussion on it.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks again, David, for your presentation. So we'll move on to 5.2, delegation cap information. So just basically motion to accept this information, the cap presentation. Councilor Brown, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 5.3, Mr. information, and I guess we should accept Kirby's presentation as information. Councillor Narang, all in favor of that motion?
Sorry, just before we vote on that meeting.
He's gonna get back, is my understanding.
Nobody asked for anything.
No, there's nothing.
Your worship, I think his ask is if the town put resources available to put the kids together, we can. I think that was his ask.
From council, mostly, you want to council involved in that.
I
With
think
what
he's
I
a-
understood.
Well, you got town staff as well.
Bank stuff.
I didn't hear.
I didn't get that. I just thought he was going to reach out as he needed. And then would we just bring that forward, or would we, would you,
Your worship, the council is supportive of the town assisting in this endeavor. We've probably seen that administration assist the Neighbor Friendship Center as available.
again, I guess I don't know what we're assisting in. That's kind of why I'm questioning how much, yeah, Brown, Robertson.
Yeah, well, what I got was just somebody down there putting things in
Yeah.
place and, just helping with the tasks so he doesn't have to hire staff.
Right. Councillor Alderson?
I got the same thing, just want to know where we get that partner and things together, decide. What can we see with the partner? Begging things, is that right?
Councillor Narang?
Yeah, he literally said at the beginning, he was asking for nothing. He was just
Yeah.
sharing his good news and telling us what he's doing. It was sort of anecdotal at the end, I thought. I didn't feel that there was a motion.
Councillor Phillips?
I heard he was looking for suggestions along with staff.
Worship, maybe some insights. I did meet with Mr. Child last week, and his request is to assist. But he did not, I think at the beginning of the presentation, it was try to make it clear that we're not asking for money.
Right.
Do we know how much time that's going to take staff?
No, your worship, so I would just say council is indicating that, I would just ask that, as per staff availability.
Again, I guess that would
Discretion.
Yeah, is it gonna take 20 hours, is it gonna take 50 hours? I think we support him for sure.
He'll just ask and then Dean will decide if there's time. Isn't that how that works? At the discretion of.
Basic,
But you want our go ahead to allow staff
some
to
use
help.
municipal resources for non-municipal.
Because then if somebody says, they're down there at the.
But again, I struggle because we don't know what type of resource. That's where I struggle. We don't have an idea.
I think we just give, yes, we can, 20 hours.
Well, it kind of goes against the last presentation. We don't know what we're giving approval for. We don't really know.
Or your worship, I could find out more information. Child, bring it back.
Sure, I mean, I think I would like to know, is it going to take 5 staff members? I think it's pretty evident we want to work with Mr. Big Child, for sure, absolutely. Does anybody have any other feedback on the big screen? Councillor Auld?
I don't think he was expecting an answer of anything kind today. I think just a little more information, and when it comes, just deal with when he brings it to us. And is it possible to move that mic 1.5 feet closer to Councillor Phillips and Alderson?
What about me?
Thanks, Laura.
Okay, can we just accept this as information today and then knowing, or would you rather that we give the approval to assist Mr. Big Child?
Your worship, maybe I minister back more information.
Okay. And in the meantime, if he needs help, we'll help. Can help, I'll help.
Yeah.
So. Good. just need a motion, then we'll change that motion to have admin bring back more information as to what actually what they might be looking for, the friendship center. Does that sound better? Okay. Everybody, all in favor of that motion? Oh. Make a motion. All in favor of that motion? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we'll move on to number 6, old business. 6.1, the RFD tax forgiveness on mobile home. Turn that over to Betty. Or no? White top log, engineering. Oh, I want to get my stuff.
Thank you, your worship and council. On May the 5th, we had a delegation attend council. Ms. Darla Preston, the manager of the Evergreen Mobile Home, and she was, I think, seeking advice or information on what to do with a manufactured home in the park. We took this back and did some research on sort of what avenues are available to her. Under the MGA, Division 8.1 deals entirely with if there's tax arrears on a manufactured home property and what the steps are. That really is, as far as I can see, as far as the town is concerned, that is what our role would be, is if there's outstanding arrears, there's a process we go through to try to collect it, and then subsequently, if need be, sell it at public auction. So that really is, in my mind, our avenue that we have available. There is also a manufactured mobile home tenancy act that the park owners can follow. It does not really have anything to do with us. So the issues that she had, one is there is tax arrears in question. Typically, it would be the owner of the home that would be coming to council to request forgiveness. So, I mean, that is something that council could consider on their own. We can also work with her to provide assistance just in terms of what options she has available to her. It's complicated, and I didn't want to get into too much detail in the briefing note regarding the specifics of this property, but you know, if she needs to follow up on who the owner is, I believe there's an estate involved. So we can give her some direction and suggestions on what she can do as a park owner. Part of this is part and parcel in managing a mobile home park. They deal with people moving in and out and selling and buying. So we can certainly provide them with some assistance or advice as to what her options are. And I guess that's the summary of what we found out. So we have provided you with some alternatives, and if you have any questions.
Just to know, or state,
Well, we have, the title has to transfer, like basically we deal with whoever's on title. So until that title's transferred, we'll follow up on our end for the tax arrears, but that doesn't really solve her issue. Actually, sorry, one other thing that came out was we did ask our assessor to go and physically inspect the trailer. And after their inspection, they have valued it at 0. So they've reduced the assessment from down to 0. It is basically uninhabitable. So, but that doesn't impact the prior arrears. They're still in place.
Any other questions?
What's the question on the ownership issue, Meg? It said that it was transferred through the are now new owners based on that transaction? Or is it new owner of the estate?
Well, it's still in the estate. I don't think we've gotten anything from land titles yet. Oh, sorry, yeah. But we haven't received anything, so it's still in the previous owner's name.
Any other questions? So we have a motion in front of us. Recommended alternative. Council Woods, Council Brown.
I make the motion that council instructs administration to revise the Evergreen Mobile Home Park legislative requirements and procedures to resolve the issue with mobile home on roll number 8159990.
All in favor of that motion? All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we need to get it twisted
I know.
around just a little bit, because I can't.
Laura, it's the camera thing, though, so I just think the camera didn't want to.
So that motion carries with 6 in favor and 1 opposed. It is 2:31. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes. Mayor, for the benefit of those tuning in online, I'm going to mute. And we'll turn on the audio again shortly before you call. Okay.
Five minutes.
The number you dialed has a new directory assistance service. Please have a
Thanks for calling Granite.
Hi there, it's Dave calling with Napa Auto Parts and Rock Mountain House, store 6260. Going back here, when was it? Middle of April, April 14th. I ordered up a tonneau cover at Tuxedo 1579616. It's supposed to be about a month, and we just haven't
Our audio is live, Mayor. And we'll get our video here very shortly. We're just waiting on Councillor Auld to accept our video request.
Okay, it's 2:40. I will call the meeting back to order. And we'll move on to number 7, the video surveillance policy. And I'm looking at turning that over to Ms. Hartley. Okay, thank you, Your Worship and Council.
So the town did have a video surveillance policy in 2016. It was approved in December 2016. The new policy is fairly similar to the old one, except there have been some updates that have been done to the new policy. In accordance with FOIP, there's video surveillance is, it's carefully looked at because of the implications to personal privacy. So those were considerations, and there was a guide that was followed, and there was consultation done with all of the departments as well in the development of the new policy. Under legislation and policy, it's just, I just really want to reference the attention, and the requirement for the collection of personal information under section 33, that there are requirements under that. And part of that includes that information can be collected for the purposes of law enforcement, which is something that has been incorporated into the policy as well. Under the strategic plan, developing a policy that adheres to the FOIP requirements as well as the requirements for or the right that the municipality has to protect their assets. There's considerations that need to be taken into play when the policy is written. So protecting assets, reducing vandalism and theft. Video surveillance is shown to be effective in that manner. And that also has to be a consideration for the placement of cameras. There has to be a reason for the placement of cameras, and it's to reduce vandalism or to target specific areas where there's been problems. So under the policy itself, I went through and I'll just highlight a few of the areas where the changes were made. So under the policy purpose, we try to provide clarification of having the video surveillance equipment and ensuring that it reflected the guidelines provided by the provincial government in relation to the equipment. It also included the addition of several definitions, providing clarity and guidance for staff. Under the old policy, we wanted to ensure that the new policy reflected kind of processes within the organization. So the CAO and directors under this policy are allowed to delegate access and use to appropriate staff, such as our community peace officers, which wasn't in the old policy. The installation and location, again, clarifying that the equipment should be adjusted to ensure that any private land and or dwellings are avoided. So, if it's on a trail system or say behind a rec center or whatever, the placement of the camera should be, they should try and alter it so it's not shining into someone's backyard or shining into any kind of personal property anywhere. I also updated the signage. If you notice in the signs that were attached, that there's actually a statement on the sign that indicates that this is to deter, detect, and prosecute crimes. So it's very specific. It's giving specific information. And there's also contact information if people have questions about the video surveillance system or use. ownership of the records. We put a statement in there, so it's very specific that the town owns it unless it, unless something goes to court, then it would fall under the peace officer ministerial regulations. Confidentiality, we have an audit process that we've incorporated into the surveillance policy. And again, that's to be able to assure that we're doing an evaluation and an assessment on an annual basis, which allows us to thereby make changes should it be required based on use or, often sometimes it has to be in practice for us to get the feedback that we need. And that's really, for the most part, the changes that were made in the policy.
We don't have facial recognition cameras.
No.
So I think there was somebody that thought there was
something like
I think the ones up there are gonna have the capacity, don't they?
Yeah, Your Worship, that's correct. It could be an add-on.
But currently you do not have facial recognition cameras, so that's why there's no mention of facial recognition here.
Yep.
Okay. So.
Not even an issue right now.
No, that's right. I just wanted to point that out because I specifically looked and it's not even listed in our policy, so therefore it's not happening. There are no facial recognition cameras in Rotterdam College.
Did you look right at the camera?
So, I mean, having said that, I have no other, I think it's good policy. Does anybody
No, that's
else?
great. There's a lot of considerations, not finding any private properties on public places.
Yeah.
There's an outcry constantly for reducing crime. This is obviously a way to do that. Even anybody who's ever just even worked in business on alone knows that even when you provide video surveillance, half the time it doesn't do anything. So, but it definitely doesn't do anything without it. So
Yeah.
it needs video surveillance in order to get people who are actually committing those crimes to stop.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, under the review, like some municipalities are very specific about the location, but we wanted to keep we wanted to keep that very general so that a camera could be moved if there were issues in a certain location, identifying kind of the guidelines by which we should follow where those cameras are going.
Any other questions? No, seeing none. We have recommended alternative in front. Just gonna keep that up. Councilor Alderson?
I would like to make a motion that council adopt the video surveillance policy 006/27 as presented.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other questions regarding that? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ready? Okay, moving on to 7.2. Discussion item regarding residential speed limits, and I believe Councilor Alderson, I'm gonna let you know over to you now.
Sure. We just wanted for discussion today. There was some concern that everything came out of Creekside, but I imagine this is probably true of most communities within the town. Creekside has its own little Facebook page, and there was I got candid on it. And what happened was there's been quite a few speeders coming through. I think the speed limit's 50, I believe it is. But there's just a lot of people, which is why we were really concerned with Creekside, just even with like RVs parked on the side. But it's really more, it's not just about Creekside. It's really anywhere. The suggestion was for council, we could please talk about it, reducing the places like 30 kilometers an hour, just like if it happened in the school zone. And we're talking about residential streets. There was also a request for us to talk about 54 kilometer limits, more of a collector road, so normally it probably wouldn't be reduced that low, but they would like that kind of brought up today. Our thoughts on that. The idea was they would like it to be reduced to 30 as well, because they already feel there's an issue in Creekside, and when I think it was referred to as it's going to be like a runway if it's not set to that speed limit. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts. I personally don't mind it being reduced to something like 30. Good idea.
I've often wondered about 54th Street as well, and reducing, and there was talk a few years ago about reducing it, even before there was talk of putting the new road through, about reducing it because of the parked cars and whatnot in the Creekside area. And already there is a fair amount of 54th right in front of, well, there are school zones. And then as well, in front of the rural housing, it's all 30 there. So, you know, and really actually even going beyond, like going north on 54th, even if you follow it all the way on, there are a lot of parked cars on those streets.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it makes sense.
I know there's probably some people who think that's overkill, but I think it'd be a good way to establish a safe community, like just taking those precautionary steps. There's a reason that we asked a couple years back, I think it was this council, I can't remember, where on the highway to reduce it to 80 a lot sooner than, and for the same reasons, because people continue to speed well past that point. So this is kind of that same idea, and just really, it's not just about kids, but there is a lot of parked cars in town on the side of the roads, and it would really help if speed were just reduced a little bit and save potential accidents.
Yeah, I agree. Councilor Fraser?
Now, are we looking at doing any traffic calming? Because I know where I grew up, there was a thoroughfare road and people would speed along it, and they did reduce the speed limit. But eventually it involved like aggregate planters to keep people from going around the speed bumps that they ended up putting on there. Like I guess I'm just wondering what else can we do other, like, if we lower the speed limit, we'd have to basically park people down there to make sure that people knew about it.
I mean, there are a fair amount of stoplights or stop signs on 54th Street. And I mean, already with the schools, that whole middle section of 54th is pretty much exposed there. So yeah, I don't know about traffic, I don't know if you can put a speed bump in there. But there are also traffic coming in front of the schools, right, with those bulbs. Councilor Alderson and Councilor Duran.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment. The reality is that we can't really ban that. However, what happens, I think the concern is the post is posted at 50. So somebody's gonna go 80, or they're gonna go 60 or 70. We post at 30 and maybe they're probably gonna go 50 because they're still speeding, but it's a reduced speed at that point compared to what it is. So I think that was really the idea, just that it's already a little too high if people are not obeying the speed limit, but if we bring it down and they're speeding a little bit beyond that, then really they're just gonna be driving where they should be right now.
Right. Any other discussion? I'm looking at, so I actually didn't realize east of west of Pioneer School, that's all 30 because that's a school zone and a playground zone. And then there's 57th Street, there's that little bit of 30 in there as well, so. Councilor Rain?
Yeah, we're not talking about just 54th Street, don't we?
No, that was as
Okay.
well as, like,
Yeah.
even like Creekside reduced,
Just to be
including 54th when it goes through. But I think since we're talking about it, does it really need to end in Creekside? Are we, do we want to reduce Creekside? Just figured to bring it here for discussion.
To me, it's kind of inconsistent because we don't control 11A, right? 60th, we could set the speed, but some roads are okay to do 50 kilometers, right? So, I mean, 60th Street is a prime example where you're okay to do 50 on that street. But there are more congested areas, I think, that would see an absolute benefit in speed reduction. I mean, speed in this town is we've identified it many times as being a concern. So
maybe there's, because I don't think it needs to be decided today. I think it's one of those things where we should maybe look at certain areas that probably could benefit from a reduced speed, whether that's Creekside or other areas in town, and then kind of bring it back when it makes sense. Yeah, maybe there's a testing time. I don't know, but that's my thoughts on that.
right. Okay. Councilor Fraser?
I was just kind of an extension of what Councillor Alderson was saying. So we're not looking at all residential areas, or are we looking at all residential areas? Or are we going to ask people to send in areas that we should look at? How much are we looking at dropping down to 30?
Personally, for me, I see 54th as being a 30-kilometer zone. I think there are, and then if there are more heavily congested areas, maybe we look at those, but there are some other good roads that are wide and they have ample room to see people coming or people crossing. That certainly would just be problematic, I think, to drop to 30, but that's just my opinion. Councilor Phillips and Councilor Brown?
I mean, there's probably certain parts in town we could look at. I wouldn't want to go too broad on a 30 zone throughout town, just simply because now you're, not that you're congesting traffic, because we don't have a traffic congestion problem, but a 30 zone to 50 zone is a big difference in speed bumps. So I wouldn't want to go too broad. We've got all the school zones covered, and that's definitely something. But I think, you know, if you're talking more than 30 to 50, you gotta be very cautious on where we're doing this and why we're doing this, just to make sure that we're not, there'll be some people that will be very happy having another 30, there'll be others that will be extremely irritated with that. Gotta be very careful to not do it just for the sake of doing it.
I can't imagine running 15.
No, I can't either. I mean, there are just certain areas of town that it's a general practice for me is to do 30. I'm not comfortable driving 50 when there's bumper to bumper parked cars. It's not even something I do, but.
We might have Creekside, especially for the sheer amount of people that were asking for this to be brought forward with the Creekside, then the new Creekside is a no-brainer, but I think that it's worth, maybe town already knows where there's certain areas that we can have issues, like other little subdivisions, because it's not everyone for sure, but maybe there's certain subdivisions that really need that, and it can be brought back. Some suggestions maybe.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments. We need to be selective in where we do a review of the speed limits. Creekside, as Councilor Alderson said, is a no-brainer for 30. 54th Street, I probably get more comments about the speeding on 54th Street directed at me than any other situation. I agree with Councilor Phillips that 50 to 30 is a pretty big change, or 30 to 50, sorry. But I could live with 30, and I would be quite happy. 40 would also be a welcome changes.
Yeah.
That's what we decided.
Mr. Coast, did you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, then there's options for council designating certain areas as 30. Another option, what some communities do is just say the speed limit in town is 40 kilometers per hour, and then just post that accordingly. Because really at the end of the day, you're going to issue tickets, that 10 kilometer free zone. The courts won't enforce a ticket if it's under 10 kilometers over the speed limit. So if you posted at 40, our police officers can ticket it, will hit it one. Posted at 30, ticket it 41. Just consideration. The huge impact is cost to change speed limit, because under provincial legislation, we have to have a sign for everywhere that changes. Like if 60th is a 50 kilometers and change 30 to all residential, we need a sign at all those intersections, such as consideration.
So if it, so if it was something where it was just 40 throughout, would that actually be more beneficial than just changing your select signs everywhere?
We would just have, your worship, we would just have to have signs coming off the highway. Each place that comes off the highway, a 40 kilometer sign would have to be posted.
Okay. In and of town.
Mr. Brown?
Just to clarify where I stand, I'm comfortable with either 30 or 40, but we do need to be consistent throughout.
Absolutely.
I think 40 is probably that reasonable point to compromise on.
Mr. Phillips, I Councilor Ryan.
Being 40 throughout, I think is better than trying to have some 50, 30. It would be so confusing that when someone got a ticket, it'd be confused as to why they got a ticket, because, you know, like 30 to 40 to 50 on the same road. So I agree with them, consistent. The school zones are 30, and if we're going to do anything, the rest of the town will be 40, but the rest of the town will be 50.
So to me, my preference would be that to do 54th as kind of a trial, since it's a new road anyways. And then you look at the map right now, I mean, 57th Street what street do you live on, Dave?
57.
57th Street.
What's your
That's,
house number?
that's pretty much all green with the exception of some portion of the residential area. So,
It should be all green.
oh,
Yeah.
it's
Mr.
still-
Shane's been there.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. He brought it to my attention. I didn't point it out to him.
Oh, okay, so that's already.
Yeah, that's all green there.
So
Yeah.
as far as I can see, really the bigger area is 54th Street right now. I mean, we have Highway 11 going through town, we have Highway 11 going through town. We have no say on that, so for me, going 50 to 40 seems more confusing, where 50 to 30 in higher residential areas seems more doable. That's what it is.
I think if we go, this is my personal opinion, if we go to 30 kilometers an hour on 54th Street, that park is being built, there's want to go down on that.
Why?
Because there's no houses, there's nothing there, and you're gonna make it a 30 zone, and I think we're gonna have a lot of
But it's,
angry residents who have 30.
but it's not that much space though. So there, if we did it in front of the houses, like it's similar to 54th up here, right? It breaks. So this is what I'm thinking.
You're talking a road longer than the 30 zone 54th is now. And if you're gonna make 54th all the way to Creekside, you're more than doubling the 30.
No, I see that, but I also see that it's also going to be a more used feeder road. And that 54th, like the south section from Highway 11A at the crossing there to get down to the new portion of 54th, that too is congested, and there's a stop sign with kind of that wonky corner. So, I mean, as I say, generally I go 30 in those zones anyways, but. Yeah, Councilor Alderson?
I don't personally, I don't mind sort of the compromise of 40. I can see the value in having kids, lots of kids in the area, so 30 to me, great, but I think 40 is a fairly decent compromise, especially if it's throughout town, it would actually make sense, and just as far as the posting goes, instead of all the posting all over, really confusing people, but there's not that much thought process knowing that everything's 40, except for highway, which we have control over, other highways, but, and then 30s in school zones, things like that. To me, that's not a bad idea.
So then we would have 40 to 30 though.
Yeah.
So to me, is it worth the cost of the signs to do?
I think it's cheaper though, what you were saying, it's cheaper to do a blanket 40. Because you're only having to post signs for the highway end.
But you still have all these green zones that are 30.
They would stay 30 because already.
No, I know, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, right. Councilor Alt?
I was just gonna say, if we're gonna take it to a blanket 40K an hour, the courts aren't gonna process a ticket until they get after 50 anyway. Nobody's gonna do 40, they're gonna do 50 regardless. So the expense of putting, re-signing everything, I just don't see the benefit in it. I'd rather see localized, if there's a congestion issue, then deal with that space, but as far as blanket changing the town, I don't personally think we need to go that road.
Councilor Alderson?
Yeah, and, I don't necessarily disagree, is, that was the point of people going forward, is that whatever we put it to, people are gonna, there's gonna be somebody that goes a little bit more. But it's, if we're bringing it down from, of course, the ask was 30, which is quite reduced. But, even 10 kilometers or less is gonna be a greater, it's gonna be less of an impact, I guess. It's gonna be better if someone's going 40.
Going 30.
Thank you. Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that they understood that too. So they're asking to lower it, knowing there's something like faster right now. And the concern was mostly for Creekside, because it was coming from Creekside residents. But to me, it makes sense to talk about town in general, because I'm sure it's not just Creekside residents that might have this issue.
Well, I personally live across from the playgrounds, and I'm constantly out, pointing, because people go 50 in the playground zone. So I guess it comes down to basically enforcement, and that's what these signs are doing also, is possibly identifying kind of the more problematic areas. So get feedback from RCMP and our peace officers. Find out what they think would be a possible solution.
And what's hockey is more likely to be.
Because even in front of the row houses on 54th Street that are 30 right now, that's not a playground. So would that now increase to a 40? And just keep the playground zones at 30, but now that sees a 10% increase. And there was a good reason that went to 30 when those row houses were built. So.
That would still take 30.
Way down.
Or you open schools, right, to the next park, so.
But I don't know that for sure, like how far does the playground go, right? Like playground zone is, like in my subdivision, playground zone is from, a house before the playground to a house after the playground.
Another 30 sign by the road, I think it's not 30.
No, it's because of Middle Street.
Yeah.
But when this house was built, they were yeah. So, but again, we're just back to Councilor Ryan guessing.
Yeah.
So I think we need the experts in here to get more information on that.
This is a better discussion we probably have on this topic. I wasn't sure where it would go, but
No, I think
no, I think it's great. Yeah.
regarding community safety, but we also have to be practical.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna make a change that's gonna cost money, we have to make sure that it's going to be something that's absolutely explainable.
Yeah, right.
So, and then would you bring us back some information? I'm just looking for motion to have and then bring back information regarding reducing speed limits.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Good, Renee, you've got that motion? Okay. That's Councilor Alderson. All in favor of that motion? Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks for bringing it forward. So, but 7.3, discussion item regarding utility charges on vacant rental properties. I'm going to turn that over to Councilor All, please.
I've been approached by a couple different business and property owners in town inquiring about getting the ability to turn off their utilities. They've expressed that it would decrease their insurance, it would decrease their cost during this time. I'm not sure what it would cost the town to do this service. They would definitely like to see it at a no charge. I don't know if we need to go that route, but I just wanted to get administration's opinion on what it would cost and whether it's something we could offer to these residents.
Okay, thank you. So, basically, we all pay $71.42 per month is our base rate on our utilities. That's commercial and residential. So I just don't know how we could do that. Like, who do we?
So they're asking that to be taken out?
Yes, they're asking for that, so that, like, if, I don't know how we could do that. Then you get people, as mentioned in here, I've had that comment before. I don't use the curbside garbage pickup. We're kind of, I feel like we're piecemealing, and the base rate, and perhaps is basically, the base rate is just maintaining our infrastructure.
And then we have the ability to be hooked up, but off the grid.
Which up you want me to expand on?
Oh, you can, yeah.
Oh, so yeah, so basically the base rate of the utility pays for the infrastructure, the system itself. So regardless of production, that base rate pays for the plant, the pipes, and so forth. So it's not based on production or use of the service at all. It's just maintaining that service that everyone basically chips into. So we have that system. Water, sewer, fire protection is one that's overlooked when people say they're not using the service, but they still are dependent on it for that service. And then production costs are over above that. That's your cubic meter.
Councilor Alderson, Councilor
Just on that alone, self-explanatory why that would need to stay in place. But to me, yeah, going to be using fire, you don't know when they're going to need it, but that's why you get into this type of thing. Even schools, like that, every nice kid would be used like that. this is beyond that, because the reality is that we do use those things when we do need it happen in town and having the ability to be hooked up, that's what we need. And infrastructure, which costs them all still.
Councilor Phillips?
My concern would be, say that you can turn off your power or water, not power, water service. It doesn't cost us to go set something off and go set that on. And we're having people that, you know, they 2 months out of the year, it's off, it's back on, it's back off, it's 3 months, it's back on. That crew could be going out there 2 times during the course of the year before turning something that on and off.
So, but maybe Councilor Alden can answer that, is that the ask, is to have it turned off or just continue to leave it on, but just don't charge the base fee?
No, they were looking to get it actually turned off. They would like to see a 3-month where they could just turn it off, and then if this economy gets back on its feet, at that point, turn it back on. They weren't looking for an indefinite. They were looking for a time frame that they could just throwing out ideas there. We're asking the business owners for feedback and we'd like to see, and this is kind of where they're pointing their direction.
And that's exactly what it is. It's a good conversation to have. I just, and like, what would the fee be to hook it up again?
Your worship, I think in our fees and rate bylaw, it's a $25 charge. I would have to verify that.
So is that $25 to decommission and then 25 to commission? Okay. I had Councillor Alderson, then Councillor Fraser. No, Councillor Fraser and then Councillor Phillips.
I guess my question about waiving the utility fees is, do they expect that infrastructure to be there when they do have renters, when they turn that service back on? And that's what that base rate goes to pay for. And I have no problem if we decide that if we want to do a COVID measure for a specific amount of time for specific businesses because of this specific situation. But I think that's opening a can of worms to do it as base policy, because we've got snowbirds who would turn it off. We've got people who even go to the lake all summer who don't use any water in their home. They can turn it off for 2 months. I feel like there'd be a lot of extra administrative work created if we went down this road for everybody.
Could it just be at this point, again, just throwing this out there because we're brainstorming, something that is only related to this crisis, and we take that into consideration. And, having said that, there are also certain grants out there, from the federal government, provincial government, that I would assume are to help with those costs. So, I don't know how do we determine who qualifies for that and who doesn't. So, just sort of my thought. Councillor Phillips and then Councillor Ray.
Actually, yourself and Councillor Fraser asked the question. If it's a COVID short-term solution, that may be something that we looking at long-term.
Councillor Ray.
I don't know that I'm comfortable with looking at it for a COVID solution, only because those costs don't go away. So then they're just being pushed onto someone else. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's why we deferred things for people and whatnot, but I think we can do that. But as far as just getting rid of the cost completely, then it's going on someone else, because they still have to be covered.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Ray just reminded me of one other, that's pretty much it, because the reality is that there's costs to this. So now you're pushing on to whoever homeowner, so they're just because they're not renting out their properties, that they don't get to turn it off, they have to continue paying, and now they're actually taking somebody's paying for that stuff. It's just less people getting into it now, even though we're all using that infrastructure.
Right.
I don't think that's fair, actually.
Mr. Coates, do you want to give your 2 bits?
No, your worship.
Councillor Auld.
So what direction should we be talking to these business and residents? And we were talking before about having monies provided for assistance. So if, like, what directions we point them to? So what do we think would be good ideas?
Yeah, and that's the question. What is a fair thing to do for everybody, you know? And again, in light of who's taking advantage of who is able to take advantage of the many programs that are available. Are they actually good programs that people are? I mean, I'd like to hear that feedback from people, from business owners, from residents, people out of work. What are they able to qualify for, and what aren't they able to qualify for? And maybe that's what we look at, so that it's more fair across the board for everyone. Maybe there is a gap somewhere, and that's where we come in. It's finding the gap. That's what I think, anyways. Councilor Phillips.
I think Councilor Ald's question, invite these being part of all of their, bring that up as a topic of discussion, and maybe there's a solution that can be brought when we have all these people talking.
I would like to hear the gap, and I don't know who to find out from where that gap is. Because, I mean, every day you hear about new programs that are being introduced. So who's taking advantage, who's able to, who's not able to, and where can we fill in a little bit?
Fairly and across the board, not
Yes.
necessarily, you know, when
Yeah. So are you comfortable, Councillor Alt, then, that we just we've had this discussion, we have more discussion after the virtual town hall on Thursday?
Yeah, for sure. Because that's going to be, I think we're going to be inundated with money. It's going to be money requests. How to save money. So yeah, after that town hall, it should be a little more information.
Yeah, I think, you know, we want to save money. We want to look at all where we are spending our money. And sometimes, you know, this year, it looks like it would be a huge cost to the municipality. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just have more discussion after. I mean, we're going to have a meeting to go through all of the information that we get on Thursday night anyway. So. And come up with some sort of ideas from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Or more just to follow with more discussion on the virtual town hall. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to follow up after the virtual town hall. Thanks, Councillor Auld. All in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to 8.1 Seniors Week. So just for information, we did this last year. We're being asked to declare June 1st to June 7th as Seniors Week, and we have a declaration here. Anybody have anything they want to add to that, or is everybody comfortable declaring June 1st to June 7th Seniors Week? Yeah? Yeah, all right. Councillor Narang has made that motion to declare June 1st to June 7th Seniors Week. All in favor of that motion? Okay, okay, thank you. That's carried.
What did we do last year?
Well, they did a bunch of different activities. They went all over, like they were at Park Ave, they were at Good Sound.
Is one of those things like a light bulb or something?
No, we didn't.
It's a light bulb house.
Can we take all secret accounts with us?
Okay. Okay. Councilor Narang made that. All in favor of that motion? I think I called that question already, so. The interruption. We'll move on to number 9, correspondence of information. I just need a motion to accept 9.1, to to 9.4 is correspondence information. Councilor Fraser makes that motion. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to number 10, 10.1 CAO report.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'd like to ask council to go to the Director of Recreation and Community Services report, because I know he has a meeting at 3:30.
Oh, okay.
Question.
Sure.
He has a meeting on our spray park, actually.
Okay, we will go to Mr. Ament.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Thank you for allowing me to present a little bit early. It's been a bit hectic today with several projects on the go, and I do have a meeting at 3:30 with our consultants and the Spray Park Committee. So just to highlight some of the things in my report, day to day are busy with a lot of it right now is dealing with projects and making sure things are in place, working with my staff. They're all busy doing their various tasks with the facilities being shut down and cleaning and those types of things. Meetings that we've been working on, been touching base with the Alberta Recreation Parks Association. They're doing several web-based meetings almost on a weekly basis, giving updates on COVID and how it's impacted the recreation world, and trying to keep up on provincial directives and hopefully beginning to do some planning on what does that look like in the industry as we eventually get a chance to perhaps reopen. But it's an excellent way to share what other communities are going through, as well as what we are doing and what we're faced with here in Rocky Mountain House. We did have a sports field user group meeting late last month, touch base with our football field users, the ball diamond users. Good conversation. As we're all aware, the sports fields are open for use, but no organized sports are permitted at this point. So basically we're anticipating that will continue through the rest of the summer. We did talk a little bit about dressing room needs and going forward. One of the things the group did talk about was creating a working group that perhaps can begin the process of, as a collective, perhaps start putting their heads together about fundraising towards improvements to our sports fields for change rooms, those types of things. So that is something that will continue through the summer months here, and hopefully we can have something from a group, and whether it's as a capital project to consider in the next budget deliberations. But I think there was good conversation around the table from all the groups with regard to their needs, and try to come up with a plan to address those in the future. We have did a site tour of the North Saskatchewan River Park with our operations staff and figure out what work needs to happen there. Obviously, there's no events going to be taking place there, but it will give us an opportunity to do some work that we had planned around the improvements that have made there with the grandstand and looking at going forward. Mr. Kraus and myself did meet with the with RASA late last week or early last week about the lease agreement, and so we'll continue to work with them in going forward on that. We did have an ICE user group meeting also last week. Again, similar situations and planning for, what does that look like in this fall? We're on target from a project perspective to have the ice plant up and operational for mid-August like we planned. And the groups are planning for operations to continue as they hopefully would, but we really don't know at this point what registrations are going to look like, how the groups are going to be impacted due to the economy. Is that going to affect registration numbers? When we do or get the opportunity to reopen, what does that look like? Are we going to be faced with restrictions on the facility use? So those are things that we talked about, and as well, we also talked about the things that council had directed us with regard to dressing room needs, all recognizing, you know, the constraints that we have within the existing facility, and perhaps the need for some more planning to go into what is needed for additional dressing room space in the future. We also talked about the display cases, and I think we've had some good conversation about what we already have. Some of the groups already have other cases that they could bring into the facility, so we're going to continue to work as a group on that, and perhaps have something coming forward in the next budget as far as a capital improvement for display cases here at the Christensen Center. I've also been working with the schools with regard to graduation celebrations and recognition, touching base with the West Central High School and their principal. Looks like they're leaning toward having a drive-through graduation and possibly followed with a parade. We've touched base, and I've been approached by Michelle Metheringham from the Chamber of Commerce. They're looking at producing banners with the graduates' pictures and those types of things. And I think as a joint venture between the town, the county, the chamber, we're going to put together, probably in fairly short order, a bit of an information package, and reaching out perhaps to businesses, to organizations that maybe hire some of these students in sponsoring their banners. I think the banners will range in price probably from $27 to $30, looking at working with the various companies that produce signage here in Rocky Mountain House, and then getting the information out there and see if people are willing to, you know, these, you know, interesting times where the students can't gather as a whole, but a way of recognizing them. So I'll have more information on that, but it was good conversation with the chamber, and you can look forward to seeing more information about possible sponsorship opportunities for signage and banners to recognize all the graduates. I know the West Central itself has 112 graduates this year. Still waiting to hear on plans that St. Dominic's School would have. Visions West High School, the outreach school, is planning to do their graduation hopefully at a later date this year. And then also through the chamber, talked about perhaps in her conversation with the county, and is recognizing the graduates in the county, whether it's in Caroline or the David Thompson High School, and whether we extend the banner program and that kind of stuff to them as well. So we're continuing to work with the schools and try to come up with a way that the town can support our graduates this year. Just some updates on our projects. The CHP unit at the pool, they're just to the point, I think, of connecting the gas, and then it's pretty much ready to go, waiting commissioning, and we'll be able to finalize that project. We had meetings today at the pool with the company that's going to be installing the sound baffles. That project has been awarded, and we're moving forward with that. The sand filter project, they were on site last Thursday. Actually, today, the new sand filters arrived on site, so they were removing the old and then moving in the new. That project should be completed by the end of the week. So that's been moving along at good pace. The Arena Ice Plant, we have awarded that project. The plant drawings and schematics are all in place. The fabrication company is well on their way to completing or working on the plant. The refrigeration company will actually be on site starting next Monday, the 25th of May, to drain the brine lines and decommission the old plant. So that project is moving along, and as I mentioned earlier, we're shooting for completion and having the ice plant ready to turn on for the middle of August on target. And as I mentioned, Spray Park Committee, the tenders went out. We're just have a meeting this afternoon to go over the tenders with the Spray Park Committee and our consultants from Urban Systems. So hopefully we'll have some more news on that in very short order. Going on into my report, FCSS, as you know, Andrea and Rebecca continue to be very busy, certainly with the volunteer center, doing lots of Facebook posts and trying to keep the community informed on supports that are available. We did do a walkthrough as it was part of the discussion earlier about the post house and the possible move there. And I know I did attend the FCSS meeting, and there was discussion that took place about the possibility of a move. From Emergency Social Services, the COVID funding, Andrea did confirm that when we heard from Mr. Big Child today that the Native Friendship Center was successful in the application. There are 3 other organizations, the Food Bank, the Caroline Neighborhood Place, and the Friendship Center have been successful. And Andrea said I think there's up to 6 organizations in the area that were successful in receiving funding through the province on that program as well. Yeah, they're doing some, Andrea's been busy attending the interagency meetings. They've gone from bi-monthly to bi-weekly, and again, it's information sharing about all the challenge and just keeping your ear to the ground with regard to, how we can best support those vulnerable population. They're putting together baskets and packages and with activities for isolated seniors and individuals. So far, she indicated that while this would have been in April, they had given out 20 of those baskets. Andrea does continue to attend and be involved with the homelessness group. She wasn't mentioned in the presentation as being part of that group, but she's sort of monitoring where they're at with their discussions. The seniors needs assessment was presented to the FCSS board at their meeting the other day. And then we expect this social needs assessment to be completed shortly. We'll probably have an executive summary available for the FCSS board to review during their strategic planning session, which is, I believe, set for June the 10th. And Councillor Alderson can confirm that, I guess. Yeah, and then as far as the arena, just working on summer maintenance projects. They are all listed there by Mike. Did mention, and we posted that the new Olympia ice resurfacer arrived early last week, so we had a post on that, and we have ads posted for the sale of the old Zamboni, and we're getting several inquiries on that. We're taking offers or bids until June the 15th for the sale of the old Zamboni. Some backyard rinks, people are looking to have a Zamboni available. Yeah, the arena attendants, they've been busy focusing on cleaning, sanitizing, and Lara has indicated over the next little part there, the community center, the arena, the post house, the old rec building, they've all been cleaned and sanitized, and again, our staff have been doing a lot of that work, and then they're maintaining our facility here. They've stepped up their cleaning at the town hall, public works, and those other areas as well due to the COVID requirements. Now that the town hall is open to the public, we did also, our maintenance staff put in some plexiglass screens at the reception desks for our staff there as well. And then guest services, they've been busy updating policies, procedures, working, Tiffany's been working on a new ICE user policy, as well as drafting a new facility rental policy. And yeah, so they're all keeping busy with some projects and things that sort of get put off the back burner, but now that we don't have the public in, we've been focusing a lot on our policies and procedures, OH&S manuals, just getting them all up to date. So I think that in a nutshell, unless you have any questions for me.
No, I'm good. Any questions? Okay, thanks. Thanks for the report.
Thank you. I'll be signing off. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, so now we'll turn it back to the CAO report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be concise here. But I think council's pretty aware of the majority of the things we're doing, but as Mr. Emmett mentioned, the town office is open to the public today. We will be advising the public of that in greater detail this week. This morning was just making sure we had the stickers on the floor for distancing and so forth. That's a good sign that we're back open for that. Over the past month, again, contact the Provincial Operations Center, just regular COVID updates. We had an airport committee meeting. As Mr. Mann said, we did meet with RAZA in regard to new agreement. That isn't finalized yet. I did meet with a taxi cab company owner on the taxi bylaw. There was some fairly good suggestions from him on some clauses in the bylaw. And that's being reviewed by Mr. Schrader and our peace officers now. So we're expecting to bring some comments back to council and perhaps some minor changes to that. Meeting with Mr. Emmons just on town county items, positions. We're still having our regular ECC meetings with town staff. We do that once a week on every Friday, just any COVID measures that we might have to take forward to council. So that's pretty much it. In a nutshell, and lead services, communications, solicitors, along with health and safety. So.
Okay. Any questions? Councilor Alderson?
Just a small one, but I'm just curious if you have the plexiglass up at the office.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Is that something that, I know a lot of businesses are deciding they're probably going to keep them around, that have put them up at like tails and things like that. I'm just curious if it's something that makes sense to keep around after COVID's done.
Your worship, it's a consideration. I think we would have to put a better one in if it was going to be permanent. I mean, it's pretty a little flimsy right now, but it might be hard to clean, kind of move back and forth.
Anybody else have any questions? Questions from the big screen? All right, I'll make a motion to accept the CAO report presented. All in favor of that motion? Carried, thank you. Now we'll go on to corporate services, please. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Our big item was year end is done, so that brought a lot of relief, and we're just doing all the wrap up on that. So it's been completed. So we're just moving on to the next layer of things. Property tax notices have been printed, and we're just preparing them. I think they're being stuffed, and they'll be mailed this week. Just doing lots of COVID-19 work, attending the meetings. I am working on the forecast. It is a little behind, but year end kind of got in the way. We're working on the SEEP program. There's now an FCM grant that's available. So we're looking at preparing a submission for that. Completed the debenture borrowing for 54th Street. Now we'll be finalizing the chart of accounts conversion. So started looking at that. So get everything all into one system and one new brand shiny new set of chart of accounts, which will be awesome. And then in our spare time, if we can, we're starting to look at maybe submitting the annual report through GFOA for the audited financial statements. And if we do that, if we're successful, we will win a GFOA. Can't remember the name. It's for the audited statements, but it's an award. So we would win an award for like an annual report. So we will endeavor to do that by the end of June.
Sorry, for an award? We would possibly get an award?
Yes, through the GFOA, they have 2 awards. One's for annual reports where you do the financial statements, and the other one's a budgeting award. I was successful in a while ago, but the budget one, it's very, very labor intensive because the document, you can go online and look at different towns, but High River is one that has this annual reward. Taper is another that we've looked at. Basically, the front of the document is kind of information for readers. So there's a message from the mayor and the CAO, or charts, just things about your community. Then you put the financial statements in, and then at the back, there's some statistical analysis. So yeah, we'll try and do something on that this year.
Any questions for Betty? How's everybody doing? Do we need to take a break, or are we going to keep going for another 15 minutes? Yeah? Thanks. So now we'll move on to planning and development, please.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Just a few highlights in regards to my department. We did finish the Craft Brewery business case for the community. So now we'll start to try marketing that to potential craft brewers to come to our community. We are planning, of course, for the Oval, Market on Main, or sorry, Market on the Oval. It's going to get a while for me to get used to not saying Main, but so we're starting to plan on that. Tomorrow we're going to publicize the registration form. We're going to start registration next Monday for 25 vendors for 10 weekers. Tough to say we'll fill up or we won't. The farmers market will take the other 25. I think we've got everything under control somewhat for the Market on Oval. Visitors guide, we met with the mountaineer this morning in regards to the guide, to give him some direction on what to put within the guide and how many copies that we require. So that's moving ahead. They're hoping to have it at the press by June 10th, back here by June 19th. So yeah, for the summer months. The EDO and the county EDO are working on videos for the community. They've done 3 so far, one with banking information. Rocky Credit Union helped support that. Social media and bringing awareness to your business. That was with WOW with Michelle Andrushak. And we did 3 business interviews as well last week, one with Cherubs, one with local farmhouse, and one with Copper Creek, just as far as what they've been doing and how they're, I guess, succeeding and making sure that they're getting their word and their product and services out to the public. In regards to the Planning Community Development Department, Kinsman Park, we sent up the land transfer, up the land titles. So hopefully that will be back soon, and the park will be in our name. Working on the medical building lease agreement presently. QMP for the other disciplines, we're in the process of doing a quote from the business or the suppliers that are out there, the inspection companies. Senior development officers working on collaboration with the regional fire for a wildfire mitigation strategy for Rocky Mountain House. Also, we're doing research on the VLTs, where they fit within our new land use bylaw, making sure they do fit if we decide to go ahead or we're able to process the VLTs. Lots of fence inquiries through our office. We did put in this month's utility newsletter all the information you need for building a fence within our community to alleviate some of the phone calls coming to our office. LUB still in review up at legal. We did complete the development agreement for 58A Street with Browood Developments. As you've maybe seen or heard that the development is happening, they're pushing dirt up in 58A Street. As far as protective services, they've been busy in regards to night shifts. They've been working more and more night shifts to see what's happening out there and to watch for opportunities, I guess, for people misbehaving out there in the evenings. They did issue a $1,200 fine for social distancing. As you can see in my report, the individual was warned 3 times previous to that. They do document every time they warn someone, just for backup in regards to issuing a social distance ticket if they have to. They still are working with the public health inspector in regards to complaints. We are the first contact for any complaints that come through the public health inspector. Officers are still issuing fines for traffic offenses and dealing with bylaw issues. Positive ticket program, which we did last year, we're going to be handing out t-shirts, keychains, giveaways to people or the kids that are doing good out there in regards to bike helmets, crossing safely across the street and that type of stuff. We are utilizing some of these gifts for the birthday parades as well. Over the weekend, the 3 town peace officers worked with the county peace officers in regards to a dual enforcement outside the community, but also inside the community. They did have some issues on Saturday with people on the train trestle in regards to getting them down, as far as getting them off, I guess I should say. Protective services, they're all equipped with all their PPE and continually work with other agencies for the community.
I have a question about the market analysis. Is it possible to get council a printed copy for each one?
Oh, sure.
I know I've already asked for that.
Yeah.
So it makes it have one, I don't know, what is it called, like 1 or 2 on hand to be able to give out if we're traveling somewhere?
We'll do both. We'll give you an electronic copy as well as a hard copy. Yeah, just for either or.
Yeah, because the one I had was spiral bound.
Okay.
So you also to be able to have it in your hand, you know. What does everybody think? 1 copy, 2 copies? Couple copies each?
Yeah, a couple copies.
And then that way we need more. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Any more questions? Okay. Thank you. And we've got engineering. And is there? I don't know. Hello, Mr. Shank, you're on.
Good day, Your Worship and Council. How are you doing today?
Good.
So as usual, I'll keep this nice and short and just a few highlights here. We've been dealing with a lot of the COVID, just like everyone else, wearing the masks and social distancing. We've also taken on 5 pool staff helping out the rec department. That's working well, getting a lot of jobs done. We had a main sewer line hit out by the lagoon. TELUS was putting in the fiber line for that new TELUS tower that's out there in 2017, and they hit the line. A lot of damage. So we are looking at getting that repaired within the next couple of weeks. We're probably going to be hiring in a local contractor to deal with that. Crews have been dealing with potholes as usual. Park staff have been cleaning out flower beds, parks, playgrounds, doing inspections, getting everything ready for if things do open up. Creekside, we're still having issues with the rags and underwear. We did put a new pump in. It seems to help. We're probably going to look at putting in another pump within the next couple months. We had 2 more water breaks, one on 56th Street and one on 60th Street. So to date, we've had 6 residential service breaks and 5 main line breaks. Lagoon desludge is on hold again, waiting for the company to come back. They claim it's because of COVID. So as soon as they know, I will update you with that. The airport, the NOTAM was lifted. Ken was able to get the runway lights working again. So that was really good news out there. The town was also approved for a $200,000 grant under the 2019-2020 ACP program. We have the new security cameras have been installed out there. Door locks have been changed out. As far as capital projects, 54th Street extension should start mid to late June. 47th Street should be starting early June, and paving won't start till July. That's all I have.
Mr. Coates or Mr. Shades, I'm wondering about the damage that was done to the sewer line.
Yes.
Will that be paid for by another company, or is that are those our repairs?
Oh, go ahead.
No, we will be receiving costs.
Okay. We did see the video footage. So, and I have another question. Do we have an average cost on a water main break? Let's say something like 60th Street. What would that repair? And I know you can't give me the exact, but you know, you were there for how long that day?
The crew was there about 9 hours, and typical water break is anywheres from 10 to 15,000.
Per water main break?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
That's on a good day.
Yeah. When it's not super cold.
Correct.
Okay, Councillor Auld?
I didn't hear Dean's response. Who's covering that tab for the water or the sewer main break?
TELUS actually is going to be covering all the cost. It'll also include the cost of our crew out at the lagoon, sewer flushing the main line from all the dirt and everything that went in the line. We're going to throw all the numbers back at them, and we'll go from there.
And that's going back to 2017 that they put that line through our system?
Correct.
Was there an estimation on how much was not pumped into the lagoon?
As far as materials, everything went to the lagoon that was supposed to go there. We found it this 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, when the guys were picking garbage in the ditch and noticed a sinkhole in the road and could see actual water flowing through there. Our main concern right now is all the mud and the concrete that went in the line. If that plugs off, we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
I just have one more question regarding Creekside and the plugging off of the sewer lines there from the retirement home there. Is there any way of, whether it's fines or billing these people back for the damages that they're creating?
Yes, there is, but I'm not convinced it's coming from the seniors complex over there. We have a system in place and they have the exact same system. So we're still not sure where this material is coming from.
Oh, okay.
It's underwear? That's
It is.
Councillor Phillips and then Councillor Fraser.
Actually, Councillor Old asked me a question.
Councillor Fraser.
I'm just wondering if we should start posting the underwear, pictures of it, see if anybody's missing any underwear in Creekside.
Yeah, I think we've actually pulled out 3 different pair of nice white underwear. Well, not white anymore, and 1 hand towel. So
How does that not plug the toilet?
we're not sure how that actually works.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
So, the motion to accept director's reports as presented. Councillor Brown, all in favor of that motion? Sorry, I missed, okay. And then I was looking at Rob for his hand, but I don't think. Okay. That's carried, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 11, the action list. Anybody have any items? Any questions on the action list? Anything up there? No? Okay, seeing no questions, just a motion to accept the action list as presented. Councillor Alderson, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Moving on to number 12, administrative inquiries. Does anybody have one? No? Okay. Moving on to number 13, any notice of motion? Okay. It is now 3:57, and I will call a 5-minute